Hi everyone! So I've been thinking, as always, about my relationship with makeup. I've been thinking about how my relationship with makeup has changed and evolved, what makeup means to me, what it means to me now, how I utilize makeup, and just some general thoughts about sort of my fantasy life and my real life when it comes to makeup. My makeup style and my makeup preferences have changed so much over the years. I think I've noticed the most significant change over the last year, 13, 14 months or so, when I was doing my no-buy, just because I wasn't just constantly getting new things in. I was using a lot of what I already had and kind of being resourceful a little bit to make certain things work for me depending on what I was trying to achieve. I've gone through so many different makeup phases in my life. I'm not really sure what my current phase would be called. I'm not really sure what any real phase would be called, but I've done like the full heavy, thick, rimmed black eyeliner. I've done blue mascara. I've done a face full of glitter. I've had sort of my staple looks from different periods, like gold eyeshadow and pink lipstick. It's a big one. A lot of different things. And at different times of my life, makeup had more of an impact and it was more of a larger presence than other times. I would say the last couple of years, it has been the biggest focus, what with doing beauty-related YouTube videos, getting hooked on Sephora, buying more and more stuff, panning stuff, then buying more stuff. It's been many years of a lot of makeup stuff. But thankfully, so much of that has changed. I've worked really hard on my behavior and my habits, and I've been constantly trying to make adjustments mentally and otherwise. I've really worked on my sort of triggers when it comes to makeup, as in purchasing new things, or even why I would wear certain styles of makeup depending on what was going on in my life. So I've been working really hard on identifying those things, but I still go through phases where I just really, really wish I could buy makeup. And I really wish I could buy just whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted to buy it. And I think that is the fantasy life. Sometimes I think about being one of those women, the ones with the seemingly endless bank account who buy every single new release, every new product from a specific brand. You see the swatches and they just play with things and they use whatever they want and they buy stuff all the time, and they have such beautiful makeup rooms and collections of makeup, and it seems like such a pretty little fantasy. I do sometimes get overwhelmed because I think about having that much stuff in the space that I have, and I'm like, oh my god, I could not handle it. I could not handle it. I feel like I have too much stuff in the space that I'm in currently. I wish I had a little less based on my space, but in the fantasy, in that dream, you would have sort of the house and the whole lifestyle that goes along with having all of that makeup. So you could have your dedicated beauty room, which wouldn't be out of the ordinary because you have that endless bank account and you constantly are buying new things and life is great. But then there's another part of me that thinks that would be really overwhelming to even have that much stuff anyway. And having spent so much money on that stuff, you would never be able to use it all. To think about how much stuff would be wasted, even if you're giving stuff away, it's so much money, and I feel like it would end up being so much waste, because how could you actually enjoy all of those products? I mean, I'm just thinking for myself, not talking about anybody in particular, just how would I be able to use all of those things if I had all of those things? So I try and readjust my brain a little bit to think of a more realistic sort of fantasy, what my fantasy ideal self would look like. I do really think that the default for me is still quantity. It's still like I just want more, that little part of me, that first initial thought, but really it's quality. I would much rather have quality than quantity, I think, when it comes to anything in my life. There's something really appealing about having a smaller collection, well curated, to use that term. There's something about having aesthetically pleasing products. There is part of me that thinks more expensive, not because expensive automatically equals better. I'm definitely not saying that. I just feel like it's part of that fantasy luxury thought process where it seems like, well, in my mind, a small curated collection would be like probably mostly luxury, very high-end products, because it kind of goes along with that fantasy lifestyle. Thinking about like, I'm just gonna blow $90 on a Pat McGrath foundation because I want to and I can. But the realistic side of me is like, $90 for a foundation? What else can you get for $90 though? Like, I hate to be that person, but because of the financial situation I'm in now, I definitely think, wow, I can't afford a lot of basic things. It doesn't make sense that I'm scrimping and saving, but then would be entertaining the idea of buying a $90 foundation, does it? So I find myself sort of mourning for that kind of person, that fantasy self that I sometimes wish I could be, that I will probably never be. You know, those small, thoughtful purchases that really aid the collection. It's nice in theory, but I probably won't ever be that kind of person. It's probably not actually going to be a realistic thing for me, and probably not really a lifestyle I'm ever gonna have. Because I sort of associate that sort of thing with like a really well put together person. You know, I think designer labels, I think just very organized, very meticulous. It's not me. I'm very messy. I'm sort of scruffy. You know, when it comes to fashion, I'm more of a decade-old thrifted sweater and a pair of clearance rack pants. The most put together I tend to get is with a maxi dress and a flower crown. But that said, I'm still not a minimalist. I don't have the minimalist personality. I'm very intense, I'm very passionate, I'm very much go big or go all the way home. And I think part of my problem is that I keep visualizing a completely unrealistic version of myself. I am thinking about somebody that I will never be, but yet I have that fantasy impression of, and that ends up hurting me more because I keep focusing on these what ifs about like, what if I changed this about myself, and what if I was this, and what if I did that, when it's not ever gonna be me. Even though I know it's not me, and I know it won't be, you know, that I do recognize that, but sometimes it takes a while to get there. So I still end up getting sad over the things I don't have, the things that I want, what I wish my life looked like, what I wish I could purchase, what I wish I had reflected back in my bank account, what I wish I got to experience. I keep working on countering these feelings, and it feels weird to kind of almost feel lost for a person that never existed and never will exist. But there's definitely that part of me that's like, oh, in an alternate timeline. But I have to let that go, because that's not the life I live. That's not the life I'm gonna get to live. And I have to kind of keep reminding myself and just be really, really brutally honest with myself about what the situation actually is. It probably sounds so bizarre, but sometimes I just have those little flashes, those little visions of what I could have been like in a different life. And some of it's triggered by makeup, and it's triggered by descriptions of makeup or by other people's collections where I'm like, oh man, that sounds like something that maybe I would have had myself if these things had happened in my life instead of what actually did. Because the truth is, the real truth is, it's not about makeup for me at all. It's about what the makeup represents. It's financial independence, it's creativity, it's success, it's freedom, it's the physical embodiment of what I think beauty is, what the definition of that physical beauty is for me. And I'm working on redefining those definitions for myself constantly, because it's so easy to believe other people. It's so easy to believe what other people's definitions are, and I constantly have to be like retraining my brain to stop thinking those things. I think at least on some level, we've been told not to feel beautiful, not to feel comfortable with who we are, because the beauty industry capitalizes on our insecurities. We're buying all kinds of products to fix flaws that we're told exist, and then we hyper focus on them. At least I do. And people feed into those definitions of beauty, and then they focus on them, and then they point them out to other people, and then people focus on them on themselves, and they notice it in other people, and so on and so on. I know it's a lot to think about, but it's just what I've been thinking about in relation to makeup and how I've been using makeup, which has been a lot less about creative expression and more about trying to fit in and trying to kind of make myself fit somebody else's idea of what beauty is. Anyway, I would really love to hear from you. Let me know if you have a fantasy version of yourself or an ideal self that you think about, that you compare yourself to. If you've had any sort of these similar thoughts about makeup, or if you've thought about like a fantasy makeup collection and what that would look like, and if that's actually practical for you based on how you use makeup, or if it's because it's, you know, somebody else's idea or ideal or somebody else's fantasy or reality. I'm very curious to know what other people think. If anybody else thinks the same sort of way or general way that I do, just curious. Anyway, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really truly appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I hope we get a chance to chat soon.